Hi guys, Jen here with How Jen Does It. Today I am going to share what I would tell myself when I was a mom of young children. So if you are new to my channel, I have a 19-year-old and 16-year-old. Both are boys, and I've been married for almost 20 years. So I know a lot of you are in that stage where you have little ones, and I get asked about that time in my life so often, and I know a lot of people do videos about what they would say to their teenage self, and that was a long time ago for me, and I know a lot of you are in that young mom stage. So these are just some things that I hope will encourage you, but we're all different, so some of these might apply to you and some might not, but I really hope that it encourages you, and I thought it would be a good video to do. So I'm going to jump right in, and these are in no particular order. I've been thinking about this video for a couple days, and I just jotted everything down that I wanted to say, so I'm going to jump right in. The first thing I would tell myself as a mom of young children is that, you know, all of the things that you spend time worrying about, none of them actually happen. I used to worry a lot when my kids were little, and that can be common because there are so many things that can happen to our little kids, but I worried quite a bit, and it's something that God has worked on me over time, and I've learned to not worry as much and just to trust God. But that is definitely something I would tell myself, that all of the things that I worried about, none of them actually happened. The second thing I would tell myself is that no mom is perfect. Every single mom struggles with something. It might not be the same exact thing as you or me, but every mom struggles, and there is no perfect mom. And when my kids were little, we didn't have social media really. I definitely wasn't on Facebook yet. I was one of the last of my friends to get on Facebook, and even now I don't really get on there a whole lot to, you know, scroll through, but I know that it can seem like a mom or several moms, or the moms that are on YouTube, or the moms that are writing this blog, or the Pinterest moms or whatever, that they never struggle with anything, or the mom whose adorable kids are all lined up in a row with their cute outfits and their hair bows and all of that, that they never struggle, but they do. Every single mom struggles, and no mom is perfect. Even that mom, she's not perfect. The third thing I would tell myself is that you are a good mom. I think every mom of young children, every mom of any age children, needs to be told and reminded that she is a good mom. Along with that, I would let my younger self know that my kids turn out great, just to encourage myself that I'm actually doing it okay. I'm doing a fine enough job, and they turn out fine. Next, I would tell myself that it is okay to say no, and I have learned this over time, but I would definitely go back and tell myself as a young mom that it's okay to say no. And that time is so busy, and we're exhausted taking care of our little ones. And for me, my husband worked full-time and he went to school full-time, so I did most of the parenting. It wasn't that he neglected the kids or anything like that, but I was the one that was there, you know, doing it. And so I would tell myself that it's okay to say no. You don't have to be everything for everyone. And while you want to take things off of other people's plate to help them, you're just piling it on your plate, and sometimes it's overwhelming. So it's okay to say no. The next thing I would tell myself is that it is not selfish to take care of yourself. And that is something that I've learned over time, but it's okay to have some of my own interests apart from the kids. It's okay to need a break, to say when your husband gets home, I just need a break and go to Target or whatever. It's okay to, in the evening, meet up with friends. One thing that we did was sometimes we would go to Applebee's. They used to have half off appetizers at night. I think it was like after 9. I don't know if they still do that, but that was something that we did. But that was a little bit later when my kids were older, and I wish that I would have taken more time to do stuff like that when my kids were really small. It was a little bit hard with our schedule to have someone to watch the kids. So one thing that I did do was I would have play dates with my kids' friends, but the mom would also come over and it would be one of my friends, so we could hang out. So taking care of myself and having my own interests, but also like making sure that I got enough rest, making sure that I was doing things that I loved, and it's not selfish. So that is definitely something that I would tell myself. The next thing that I would tell myself as a mom of young children, and this definitely won't apply to everyone, but it's just something that I would let myself know to encourage myself, is that I never one time, even a lot of years later, had any regret for being a stay-at-home mom. Not one single second of my life did I regret it. So I would just tell myself that so that I would be encouraged that my choice was the right choice for our family. The next thing I would tell myself as a mom of young children is not to worry about what other people think about our choices in parenting. We, my husband and I, are the only ones responsible for our children and the choices that we make. And like I said, this was before social media, so I can't even imagine what it's like now when you look at Facebook and there are just like opinion after opinion after opinion about every single thing you do as a parent. And I would tell myself, you did your research on some of these things that are controversial, or things that people have strong opinions about. You're not going around telling people how to raise their kids or to make the same choice that you do. When asked, you just say, here's the information, make sure you study both sides and make your decision. And I would let myself know not to care about what anybody thought, and not to let someone else's opinion persuade me in my parenting. I would let myself know that I would look back on this very time with great joy, and not always really remember how hard it was, even though when you're in the moment it does seem really hard. And it can be really hard to raise little kids, and it can be exhausting. But now that I am older and I have older children, I look back on those times with great joy, and I think about the good things about taking walks and playing on the playground and going down the slides with my kids and doing craft projects and reading books and memorizing the books because I read them so many times, and sticky kisses and having picnics in the living room because it was so cold, and playing in the snow and sledding down the hill, and all of those things. Those are the things that I remember, and I would encourage myself with that. The next thing I would tell my younger mom self is that learning to be very frugal and living way below our means was such a great thing to learn. And no matter our income, it is such a good thing to be frugal and to learn how to live below your means. So it definitely paid off to be frugal. The next thing I would tell my younger mom self, and this is definitely not in order, this is very important, And that is to spend time with my husband, spend quality time away from the kids sometimes. So whether it be after they went to bed, whether it be date nights, whether it be going away. And that is something that we did not necessarily as much when my kids were really little. We started doing more of that when they got a little bit older. And like I said, it was very busy because my husband was in school and working full time. And I'm sorry, my neighbor is weed whacking or something. So if you hear that noise, that's what it is. But I just really see the value in making sure that you lose that connection with your spouse and making that a priority. And I will let my younger self know that as I'm telling you this, that sounds so weird, you are coming up on your 20th wedding anniversary. And what an encouragement that is, that you've made it for almost 20 years. I have two more things that I would say to my younger self, and these don't necessarily have to do with raising children, but they are things that I would definitely say to myself to encourage myself during that time. And these may be a little more specific to me, but I know there are lots of different people out there watching in different circumstances, and I just feel that I want to share. So hopefully it will encourage some of you, or a lot of you, I'm not sure. But one thing that I would tell myself, and this goes for anyone regardless if you have children or not, and that is, don't expect to never go through a tough time. And don't be surprised when you go through a tough time. And I would tell myself, you're going to go through tough times and it won't seem fair, and you're going to question why you have to go through that. And sometimes you're going to even wonder if God still loves you, if He's listening to you, and it's going to be hard. But in the end, your faith is going to be very strong and you won't doubt God's love for you. You'll see that He was there all along. You just had a lot to learn. And just be prepared that you will go through tough times. This life is not perfect, and being a Christian doesn't mean that you won't go through hard times. You will. It's a given. So don't be surprised when you go through hard times, and just know that God is always, always with you, even when it feels sometimes that He's not. He is teaching you things and you will come out stronger. The last thing I would tell my younger self is pretty specific to me, and this might not be a lot of your experience, but you never know. I would tell myself, don't wish that you had a different story. Don't feel like you are less valuable because you became a Christian later in life. I was 22, and just because a lot of the women that you are friends with, or a lot of the women that go to your church, were saved as children, it doesn't mean that it didn't take the same amount of grace to save them as it did you. And your story is important, and your story is what makes you unique, and your story is what God's going to use, and it makes you you. So you are completely forgiven, and you no longer live in the past, and you're a totally, completely different person because God says you are. But don't wish or spend your days wishing that you were just like everyone else, because God has a purpose for you. He has a purpose for your story. He has a purpose for your life, and it makes you who you are. It makes you understand people in a different way because you've been there. It makes you want to tell people the good news of the gospel because you saw. Don't regret your story. Let it speak to what a good God you serve, and let it be what prompts you to share the gospel, and let it be a reminder to you daily of how good God is. And don't wish that you were someone else, and don't think at all that you don't have just as much of a right to be at church or wherever as someone who became a Christian at 5 years old, because you do have the same amount, because your right doesn't depend on what you did or how long you have been a Christian. It depends on what Jesus did for you, and it doesn't have anything to do really with you and how you lived your life. It has all to do with Jesus. So I'm not sure who's listening, and I know a lot of you aren't Christians, but I know a lot of you are. So I wanted to share that with you. And just a quick note, if there are any of you watching who are new Christians, and maybe you came to Christ later in life, and maybe you have that struggle. I know it's a common struggle when you're surrounded by people who grew up that way, or were a Christian at 5 or 8, and you lived like this whole life without Christ, and then you can look at yourself and feel like you're not as good as them, or you're not as valuable as them, or you don't know as much as them. And I don't really struggle with that anymore, only because of God's work in my life, but I did. I struggled a lot with that. And I just want to encourage you, if you are in that situation, that you're completely forgiven once you accept Christ as your Savior, and once you make Him Lord of your life and know that it's not any good that you do. You're completely 100% forgiven, and God says He remembers your sin no more, no matter what. And you don't have to explain it to anyone. You don't have to feel guilty about anything. You're completely different. And I know I'm completely different. But when I was only a few years out of that, it was hard. And it was hard to have a different story than everyone else. But God will use that story. He will. And He uses it so much in my life. And it makes me who I am. And He'll do the same thing for you. And so don't ever wish that you were someone different, because God will use you exactly the way you are, and He will change you. He's changed me. When I look back and I thought about all of this that I wanted to say to my younger self, I'm like, wow, when a year goes by, you see a few changes, but when 18 years go by, it's a lot, and you can see the changes. And just know that we all have a purpose. And for the moms watching, you are the best mom that your kids could ever have, because you are the one that God chose to be their mom. So you are so important, and you'll have hard days. Every single mom, no matter what it looks like, has hard days, and I had hard days. Oh, I had hard days, but I also had a lot of amazing days. And now that I'm out of that stage, I look back, like I said, and I think about all of the good things, all of the fun memories, all of the things. And you might not feel like your kids are listening, but they are. They really, truly are. And all of your effort will be worth it. I promise you. Don't give up. It is hard, but it will be so worth it. And I would also tell my younger self that your teenage boys still like you. When they get to be teenagers, they still like you, so you must have done something right. So anyway, I just wanted to share all of that. I hope that it encouraged you. And like I said, I know we all have different lives and different beliefs and different backgrounds, but I really, really hope that it encouraged you today. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day.